One Monday morning in a busy Oka road, Onitsha, a woman named Madam Quick Cash landed. Nobody knew where she came from. Nobody knew her family, but from the very first day she arrived, money followed her like a shadow. Written boldly in front of her shop were the words, Madam Quick Cash Ejo a contribution and loans. Madam Quick Cash was a strikingly beautiful woman, the type whose beauty made people uncomfortable. Her eyes were sharp. Sharp like money itself, and when she looked at you, it felt like she could calculate your entire destiny. People called her Madam Quick Cash because her charges were unbelievably low. She collected just 100 naira per contribution, and for those dropping 200 naira daily. She collected only 10 naira. It didn't make sense, it was too cheap, but Nigerians like a wolf, so people rushed her like water. Every morning, Madam Quick Cash would stand in front of her shop shouting, "Come and do contribution, oh, Christmas is almost here, the earlier, the better, time no money, oh, don't waste time, Quick Cash is here for you." Her offers were sweeter than honey. If you joined her Oho community before December 23rd, she promised you 1 bag of rice, 1 carton of spaghetti, 5 kilograms groundnut oil, 2 live chickens, 1 penta of stock fish head, and many more mouth-watering packages. She had packages for everybody, the big contributors and the ones that could only drop 200 naira a day. Nobody was left out. Her smile alone could convince even the most stubborn man, but there was something about that smile, too warm, too fake, too deep. Some people said she was a blessing, but others whispered that her generosity was a trap wrapped in sweetness, because behind all the juicy packages Madam Quick Cash offered was something darker, something deeper. Something Oka Road had never seen before. People rushed. Every day her tiny Oho shop on Oka Road looked like a Kanja market during Christmas rush. The queue outside her shop was always long enough to block half the street. Customers were always dragging themselves. "I came here before you, Madam, no allow cut line oh." To keep her sanity, Madam Quick Cash created a number system. Before you even breathe inside her shop, you must pick a number. She didn't like stress. She said it every morning, so she would sit inside her shop, fanning herself with her big hand fan, calling customers one after the other, "Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. If you waste my time, come back tomorrow. I know they like nonsense." People found it strange, not just the number system, but something else. Her shop was always open. Always. Madam Quick Cash would open as early as 5 a.m., before some sweepers even woke up, and she wouldn't close until 12 midnight. Imagine a moneylender keeping her shop open at such odd, eerie hours. People whispered about it. Does she even sleep? What type of businesswoman does night shift like vigil? But nobody could deny that there was something about her that pulled people in. Maybe it was her too sweet smile, maybe her sugar-coated mouth that could make you contribute more than you planned. Borrowers came in dozens. A young man borrowed money to start a kiki business. A widow came for 500,000 to start tomato business. Another man came boldly to borrow 100 million Nigerian nairas to start a large-scale importation business from China. Students even rushed her for school fees, for small hustle money, for everything, and strangely, money was always available. Madam Quick Cash never lacked, never hesitated, never postponed. But the sweetest part, and the most dangerous part, was what happened after you took her loan. Your profit would triple, your business would boom instantly, you would suddenly see money you had never seen in your life, and in excitement you'd rush to pay her quickly so you could balance well. But what you didn't know was this: the moment you pay her back, you have tied yourself to a spiritual chain. From that moment onwards, your luck dries up, your money starts disappearing, your business collapses, trouble begins to look for you from corner to corner, and every money you touch somehow finds its way back to Madam Quick Cash. But people didn't know the real reason Madam Quick Cash stayed open till 12 midnight. Because the moment the last customer left, Madam Quick Cash would disappear underground. Under her shop was a secret coven chamber, a place no human eye had seen. Every midnight, she joined them, Standing in the center of the dimly lit chamber, she would raise her hands and make incantations. Tomorrow. Let many come, tomorrow. Let their souls be tied, tomorrow. Let the money flow, let the gains return to us. Her voice would echo as the coven, the other shadowy figures, chanted back. Every night, she fortified herself, sealing more destinies. Drawing more unsuspecting souls. Then by 4:30 a.m., she would come out again, dust herself, straighten her wrapper, clean her face, and by 5 a.m., Madam Quick Cash was back at her shop. Good morning, oh. Come and do contribution. Time no money. As if nothing happened, the truth is, people started noticing little odd things, but they didn't pay attention. More cats began roaming around her shop at night, not normal hungry cats, but the type that stare too long. Some residents whispered, "This Oka Road don't they get as EBO?" But as you know, Nigerians are experts at minding their business. Soon, some of the people who borrowed money started returning to Madam Quick Cash. Their stories all sounded alike: sudden losses, bad luck, strange setbacks. Namdi was the first. He had paid back his loan happily the first time because business was booming, but the moment he completed the payment, everything crumbled. His kiki got spoiled twice. He had 2 accidents in 1 week. He was owing everywhere. He returned to Madam Quick Cash crying, "Madam, please help me again. I know I paid back the first loan, but please, give me again. I no go delay payment." Madam Quick Cash gave him the sweetest smile. "Oh my dear. Don't worry. How much do you need this time?" He sniffed and said, "If I can just get 1 million again, I'll be grateful." She smiled softly and said, "You know what? I will give you 2 million. Take the extra 1 million as my personal support." The man fell on his knees. He started praising her. People around clapped. "This woman is an angel. God bless you, Madam Quick Cash. Oh, your type no day again. You came to Oka Road with blessings." Madam Quick Cash just smiled, an evil smile. If only they knew. After that scene, her popularity tripled. People started calling her from outside Onitsha. Some began making contributions through phone calls without even coming to the shop. Every day, it looked like a bank, queues everywhere, people shouting, people dragging numbers, money entering, souls entering, destinies entering, and Madam Quick Cash just kept smiling. One night, a young man named Ebuka was returning home. He closed very late from his shop that day. No kiki, no bus, everywhere was dry, so he decided to trek. As he approached Oka Road, near Madam Quick Cash's shop, he slowed down. The number of cats around that area had increased in recent weeks, but tonight, it was worse. They weren't just roaming, they were waiting, staring, as if expecting someone. Ebuka shivered. He wasn't the type that feared cats, but this night, something felt off. Cats were walking beside Madam Quick Cash's shop. Suddenly, in less than a second, their shadows stretched and shifted, and Ebuka could swear with his life that he saw 3 women standing where the cats were. He blinked, he wiped his eyes, he staggered back. Before he could shout, before he could run, flash, they turned back into cats. Ebuka screamed in his spirit. No sound came out of his mouth. His legs picked race on their own. He ran like a madman. He didn't stop until he reached home, sweating, trembling. He wanted to talk, he wanted to tell people, but each time he opened his mouth, the memory drained from his head like water. By the next morning, Ebuka had run mad. Nobody could understand what happened. People said, "Oh, Ebuka the vibrant young man. What happened?" Nobody knew, but that night, Ebuka had seen what no mortal eye was supposed to see, and his mind paid the price. After Ebuka's madness, more strange events started shaking Oka Road. The widow who borrowed 500,000 naira for tomato business, she entered debt left, right, and center. The tomatoes she ordered got rotten because the truck carrying the tomatoes from the north broke down. The woman who borrowed to start a provision business suddenly got a phone call in the morning that thieves emptied her shop. Okoro's landlord gave him quick notice after he borrowed money to settle hospital bills. Everything was going smoothly, then out of nowhere, his wife lost the baby, and when he tried returning to Madam Quick Cash for support, she only smiled strangely and said, "Life happens." Every money they made mysteriously disappeared overnight. They just couldn't explain it. Namdi, few months after paying back the 1 million happily, his life finally scattered completely. Namdi found himself at the village broke, confused and frustrated after the police arrested him twice. His siblings stopped speaking to him. He finally ran away to the village out of shame. The market women were not left out. As they hustled under the hot sun, sweating, struggling, selling foodstuff, every profit they made vanished on meaningless problems. One lost her goods to rain, another fell sick, another customers arrested her for selling expired goods. They didn't know that the real problem was the hands that gave them the loan, but Madam Quick Cash kept getting richer. While everyone suffered, Madam Quick Cash kept expanding. Her cheeks grew fuller, her skin glowed unnaturally. Her shop became brighter, money flowed around her like wind. Each midnight she laughed in her underground coven. More souls, more money, more power. And her coven sisters echoed, more, more, more. With time, women in the area began envying her success, but instead of fighting her, they approached her secretly. "Madam Quick Cash, show me the way. I want to blow, I want to hammer, help me." Madam Quick Cash smiled secretly. One by one, she initiated them. She took them underground. She taught them the chants. She marked their foreheads. She also made them swear an oath of secrecy. They became wealthy, but wicked. Their hearts darkened. Their minds changed. They joined the Get Rich Quick Coven, a secret society growing under Oka Road. Now powerful women moved like queens. They were Madam Quick Cash's coven. They were unstoppable. They were sophisticated. They were feared, each one carrying a fragment of Madam Quick Cash's power. They didn't just make money, they dominated. They entrapped men, used them to climb positions, gain favors, influence business, and even sway politics. No man, no matter how strong, no matter how connected, could oppose them, and if someone tried, let's just say things started happening mysteriously. Deals collapsed, businesses failed, marriages broke. Madam Quick Cash didn't just sit back and watch, she moved like a queen at war. Every morning, she walked to her shop at 5 a.m., flawless, polished, commanding respect with every step. By 8 a.m., the shop looked like a bank, with borrowers lining up, contributions flowing, deals being struck. By noon, she was in meetings with influential men, negotiating unseen favors, giving loans that could make or break industries, all while smiling like an angel. By 3 p.m., she checked in with her coven women, ensuring each was running operations smoothly, business, politics, social connections. By 7 p.m., she was back at her shop, approving loans, signing papers, receiving gifts from grateful clients, all the while watching the city bend to her will. And when midnight came, she descended into her coven underground, fortifying her power, making incantations, drawing more wealth and influence, and coming out at 5 a.m. as if nothing had happened. Her influence wasn't just financial, it was psychological. It was fear and fascination intertwined. People whispered her name in awe and fear, Madam Quick Cash. She is not just rich. She is untouchable. Among those who noticed her was a handsome young man, who had made a career out of dating rich older women for personal gain. He had heard of Madam Quick Cash from whispers in the street. He smiled to himself, "Oh, this is another golden opportunity." But he didn't approach her, not yet. He waited, he watched, he observed her every move. He didn't realize yet that Madam Quick Cash saw everything, even those hiding in the shadows. By now, Madam Quick Cash's influence had expanded beyond Oka Road. Fear she commanded had turned her into an untouchable force in Onitsha. She was no longer just an Oho woman. The collapse of the market chairman began quietly. His name was Chief Obidike Okofor, a man who believed his word in Onitsha was law. People said he had money that could talk, and for years, he ruled the market with arrogance. When Madam Quickcash's coven women whispered that one of them should take over the position, they approached him with respect, they greeted him, they knelt slightly, they smiled sweetly. "Chief, we want you to step down for Mama Nugo," they said. "She has served this market well. Her time has come." Chief Obidike laughed in their faces. "Step down. For who? You people don't know me. Even if God himself descends, I will not step down. Now if that's all you came for, leave please, I'm a very busy man." He dismissed them with one wave of his hand. Big mistake. That night, no sound, no footsteps, nothing, just fire. Fire that behaved like it had a mind, fire that respected no boundary. His boys said it started in the backyard, neighbors said it started in the ceiling, others swore they saw nothing. His house burned down. The next day, before he could even process that disaster, news reached him that 5 of his plazas had gone up in flames. 5 plazas, 5 different locations. Same night, Onitsha stood still. People gathered on the road to watch a full-grown man, Chief Obidike, the almighty market chairman, cry like a baby, right in the middle of the tarred road. He didn't stand, he didn't talk, he just sat there, dust on his body, crying with mucus running down his nose. His voice cracked. "What did I do? Who did I offend?" No one answered. He resigned without argument. Mama Nugo became the new market chairman. The city trembled. Meanwhile, the handsome young man, Ekozona, popularly called Echiboy, was getting closer. He had been watching Madam Quickcash for weeks. To him, she was the biggest jackpot he had ever seen. He cleaned his shoes well, wore a fitted shirt, and rehearsed his smile in a mirror. He didn't know he was approaching a hurricane with bare hands. He began by asking harmless questions. "Madam Quickcash dey around?" He even started showing up around her shop casually, pretending to be a customer, pretending to be confused about contribution packages. Madam Quickcash had already sensed him. She just smiled privately. Some prey walk into the lion's mouth willingly. Months later, a new tenant moved into the building beside Madam Quickcash's shop. A new church, Fire Back to Sender Ministries, a firebrand, violent prayer ministry led by a bold pastor named Prophet Chidi Ebiub. Their loudspeakers were not small, their prayers were not gentle. Their members were not quiet, they shook walls when they prayed. One afternoon, the pastor personally walked to Madam Quickcash's shop. He stood at her door, smiling with a calm but sharp look in his eyes, holding a small flyer. "Good afternoon, madam," he said politely. "I just came to invite you to church this Sunday. God said you are important in this area. I would love to meet you." Madam Quickcash looked at him for a few seconds, sizing him up. Her expression was polite, but her eyes were calculating. She took the flyer slowly. "Thank you, Pastor. I will see what I can do." The pastor smiled again. "God bless you, Ma." He left, but the moment he turned his back, the air around Madam Quickcash shifted a little, not visibly, not dramatically, just enough to hint that 2 powers had just greeted each other. And they will meet again. By December, Oka Road was transformed. The streets were alive with activity. By the 22nd, the air was thick with excitement. The 23rd brought a crush of people like never before. Oka Road was completely shut down, clogged with people coming to collect their packages. Madam Quickcash had added extra bonuses, a generous smile on top of her usual charm. The crowd cheered, they jumped, they danced. No one questioned the source. All they knew was that Madam Quickcash had blessed them, and for the first time in a long time, life seemed fair. By January, news had traveled farther. Encouraged by her generosity, the crowd tripled. Madam Quickcash's shop became like a bank. Her power had become absolute. Meanwhile, Echiboy, he was done observing Madam Quickcash, thinking of ways to profit from her wealth. But months passed, and the plan turned on him. Slowly, he began falling in love with her. Madam Quickcash, knowing exactly what she was doing, let him immerse himself in her world. While Ekozona performed very well in his servicing duties, she showered him with gifts, trips, shopping sprees, a house, a car, every indulgence he could desire. He lived like a king, believing he was winning, but for every luxury, something inside him drained, his ambition, his independence, his vigor. He was slowly being milked, his life energy siphoned, leaving him dependent, confused, obsessed, and powerless without her. He didn't notice it. He thought he was rising, he was falling instead. Meanwhile, the coven itself wasn't perfect. Madame Stainless had secretly been having an affair with Madame Treasure's husband. Treasure eventually discovered it. Tension escalated inside the coven. Whispers, threats, subtle sabotage, fights disguised as business disagreements. Madame Quick Cash intervened personally. She summoned both women into her private chambers. She made them pay dearly by stripping them of all she gave them. The message was clear: cross the rules, and you pay. Across the street, Fire Back to Sender Ministries had been quietly observing. Prophet Chidi Ebiub, the Fire and Power Pact pastor, organized 7 days of prayer and fasting, calling the church members to pray against negative powers oppressing people, the influence of unseen forces harming innocent lives. Flyers were sent discreetly, announcements were made, people whispered about the church's strong prayers. Madame Quick Cash, of course, took notice. She didn't care publicly, but in her private coven chambers, she smiled knowingly. So the pastor finally wakes. It's about time someone noticed me. Cheboy had now received everything he wanted. He thought he was in control, that he could enjoy the pleasures of life freely. Madame Quick Cash had warned him clearly. You belong to me alone, but did he listen? No, he thought he could be smart. Every night Cheboy carried different fresher and younger women indulging his desires here and there. But one morning, as he went to ease himself, he realized something was terribly wrong. His manhood had disappeared completely. He screamed, ran out of the bathroom, panicked, and in tears. Madame Quick Cash had asserted her ultimate dominance, reminding him, subtly, terrifyingly, that everything he had, he owed to her, and only her. Around Oka Road, Fire Back to Sender Ministries began its 7-day prayer and fasting campaign, determined to challenge the growing darkness. Pastor Chidi Ebiub and his congregation gathered daily, their loudspeakers broadcasting prayers that shook the walls and rattled windows. The church called the faithful to pray for the oppression of innocent lives by unseen forces, the protection of the weak from sudden misfortunes, the breaking of dark influences harming the community. On the first day, the prayers rang out with full force. Madame Quick Cash remained unfazed, attending to her daily contributions with her usual sweet, commanding smile. By the second day, she still conducted business normally, ignoring the spiritual barrage. But on the third day, sweat began forming on her forehead. Despite the air conditioning blasting full force, her body betrayed her, the prayers beginning to pierce through her defenses. On the fourth day, for the first time in a year and 6 months, her shop remained closed. Whispers began circulating around Oka Road. People wondered, why would Madame Quick Cash not open? What is happening? By the 5th day, the tension thickened. Her customers grew anxious, trying to call her number repeatedly. Some had switched off, others got not available, some were told the number did not exist. Crying erupted on the streets. The 6th day mirrored the 5th. Madame Quick Cash remained absent. People were desperate, unsure if their contributions, their loans, or their livelihoods would survive. Finally, on the 7th day, at the stroke of midnight, without warning, Madame Quick Cash's shop erupted in flames. Something else was immediately noticed. The black cats, her familiar companions and symbols of her dark power, were gone. 1 week later, the coven women quietly gathered. Madame Gold, the unspoken leader among them, spoke with calm authority. For now, everyone lay low. Enjoy your power quietly. Do not draw attention. Madame Cash asked me to call for this meeting. She said we will hear from her. Meanwhile, Cheboy was a headless chicken in his own life. Despite owning a house, cars, and enjoying material comforts, he was now powerless as a man. The once proud schemer now wandered like a cautionary tale, a living testament to greed, lust, and the cunning of a master manipulator. The story closes with a temporary calm. Madame Quick Cash's shop may have burned, but her legend remained. The coven survived, more secretive and calculating than ever. The church's intervention had shown that spiritual power could challenge dark forces. But Madam Quick Cash's influence was far from gone. Boy's fall served as a cautionary tale. Greed and lust could never outmatch the cunning of a master manipulator. The city was left in shock. Contributors were crying, shouting, her number remained disconnected. Madam Quick Cash had gone, for now. But those who knew her name whispered in fear and awe, for a force like hers never truly dies. Moral of the story: 1. Greed comes at a price. 2. Power without responsibility is dangerous. 3. Darkness has consequences. 4. Deception and manipulation backfire. 5. Spiritual and moral balance cannot be ignored.